everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from March 3rd, 2023, and I'm recording this on September 1st, 2023. I give you those dates so you know when this information is actually relevant because the market is always moving and changing. As you will see when we see how big of price differences we have in just 6 months on a bunch of these hot books. As always, we're also looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Each week they put out a list of 10 books that are trending in the market, that are moving, that have a ton of sales, that are jumping in price and value because of some sort of news or something, so that it's driving them either a brand new hot cover, or there's option news, or character rumored for the MCU. Something is driving these books to go places they haven't been before. And yeah, so people are buying them up, and they talk about them then when they're hot. We come back and talk about them when they 6 months later to see how they did. Would you have been better off being patient? Would you have been better off, or should you have grabbed them in the moment? As if you've followed this list for any length of time, you know patience is a virtue. But let's see how we did this week and if there's anything we can learn. First up, we have Echo of Future Past, number 1 from 1984. This is the first appearance of Bucky O'Hare. And they put this on the list, but they didn't really have a reason for it. There wasn't any new news that something was happening here, at least not that, I believe this was on the CBSI list. They were like, books jumping up, but we don't know why. We haven't heard any news. We haven't found any rumors. But it basically caused the book to double. It was like a $20, $25 book, and it jumped all the way up to a $40 to $50 book. Now it's a $15 to $25 book, so basically back where it was before, whatever caused it. Only 2 really high-grade slab sales were 9.6s. There was a $55 9.6 sale and a $105 9.6 sale. But yeah, overall, this definitely is down and definitely turned into a trap. It's not a character I know a lot about. I know some of my friends in the community are fans of this character, but I don't really know a lot about Bucky O'Hare, but it appears to have returned to what it was before whatever caused it to jump and hit this list, which is a pretty common occurrence. Even when you know what it was that caused it to hit the list, the book goes back to what its long-term value is. Next, we have Something is Killing the Children, number 5. And this is hitting the list because we got news from Netflix that they're still proceeding with this Something is Killing the Children show. I don't think we've gotten any news since then, but yeah, so this caused number 5, which is the lowest print issue of the series. Also, just a great cover. We do get, there is a cameo of Old Dragon, which is kind of a first appearance here, but this is really about this cover and a low print on this cover that's really always driven this book. Yeah, back then raw copies were going for $180 to $220 for this one. 9.6, $275, 9.8, $325, which surprisingly close together in those sales. Now it's a $100 to $125 book for a raw copy. 9.6, $175, $200, 9.8, $250, $300. Kind of, again, back to what it was before this news. It did turn in just enough down, particularly on the raw side, to be a trap, for sure. So dropped a little more than I necessarily expected, because I know there's a lot of interest in this particular cover and people that just love the series. Maybe a decent time to try to track one down, but because yeah, I know this is a tough one to get for sure. Next, we have Something is Killing the Children, number 27. This is the Comics Pro variant. This really had more to do with this cover than anything else, although I wasn't a huge fan of this cover, but clearly a lot of people were. Back then, raw copies of this relatively new cover, I think it was a con variant, that this Comics Pro thing that was hitting the list. Raw copies were going for $100 back then. Still going for $85 to $125, 9.8, only one sale, but $225. So yeah, I thought this might be a trap. I didn't think this was a cover that would necessarily sustain, but I was wrong on this case. This has been steady and worth it. Yeah, people really love this series. People love some of these covers. This appears to be one of them that is sticking and holding value where others have not. So next, we have G.I. Joe number 21 from 2003. The silver foil variant is kind of a Joe Grail because it is just super hard to find. And it goes for big money because of that. 9.8 back then sold for $1,200, which is why they put it on the list. Now, Only one recent sale. There are a couple listed, not very many, but only one recent sale. A 9.4 went for $525, which is probably steady and worth it at least on this one. But no other raw sales, no other high grade, no other slab sales. So hard to fully judge. But given, a little less than half for a 9.4 from what it was for 9.8, that's about typical. That's pretty close to value. My guess is the 9.8 would still cost you well over $1,000. So it's probably definitely worth it here. Next, we have Stargirl and the Lost Children #4. They did kind of a Golden Age homage here of a Flash comic. This is a Todd Knock 125. You see the main cover. It's her reading this exact comic. So that's kind of what's going on here. Back then, raw copies were going for $100 on this 125, which usually means you're into the triple ring, you're into triple quadruple ratio. That usually means, hey, that's probably going to be worth it. That book's going to probably stick pretty close to where it's at. And that has been the case. It's still a $90 to $100 book. 9.8, only $190. Again, just one sale to judge off of there. So steady and worth it here. I had put I'll Be Back. I'd seen over the last year or so, the trend has been, even for these ones that gotten a little higher, to be more I'll Be Back than worth it. But this one did ultimately stay as worth it. So next, we have The Mandalorian, #8, the Terry Dodson 1 in 50 that was going for 50 to 60. Now, the rules on that, on a book going for ratio, is that it's a trap that's going to end up well below ratio. Not the case here. This is a $30 to $80 book, with most of the sales still right around ratio at $50. So we'll call this a steady and I'll be back. You can definitely get some deals under the $50, $60 range. 9.8 here. 80 to 115 on this one. So actually, like, the high end of raw sales are butting up against the low end of the 9.8 sales, which tells me some people are overpaying for raw. But yeah, this Grogu variant is still doing pretty well. Little surprised. I do feel like The Mandalorian is a show, and this whole Grogu stuff has kind of tapered off from the heights of season 1, even season 2 of The Mandalorian. But this particular cover is still doing well. All right, next we have Star Wars The High Republic, The Blade, #3. This Linnell Francis Yu 1 in 25 was going for 40, so not even double ratio, which screams trap. But as we just saw in the previous book, that didn't actually follow the rules. This one did. It's now a $10 to $25 book. It's actually less than ratio. 9.8 went for the $40 raw copies were going back then. Yeah, this is a dumpster fire, even more than a trap. So this one fell more than made up for the last one, I guess, in terms of how much this one dropped. Definitely dropped way back on this particular cover. And I wondered about this. I didn't think this was I really enjoyed the series. I enjoyed these two characters, but this was not a cover that really stood out to me. Next, we have Battle Chaser #1, the Joe Mandera variant. And this, hey, we got news that Battle Chasers was coming back. That's what was going on. We actually got solicitations, I believe, at this point, and it has been a comeback. It's 3 issues have come out. We've gotten 10, 11, and 12, and now it appears to be on hiatus because it's not on the list for a couple of months. So we'll see what happens, how many more of these we actually get. But back then, it coming back caused #1 to jump up to a $90 book raw. This variant of #1, I should say, this Red Monica variant, which I really don't think is attractive, but that's just me. She looks, I don't know. This one it's never worked for me. Even back then, I was like, ew, I don't know. But 9.8, 325 here. So yeah, this book jumped way up, and it's been steady and worth it. It's still a $75 to $100 book raw, $350 to $400. So actually up just slightly on the 9.8. So people are still wanting this book. The series has come back. People are big fans of this series. I think back then we're hoping it would come back, and we'll see. Hopefully we continue to get more of it, because I enjoyed it back then, and I've enjoyed the 3 issues that have come out. So next we have Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man #5, first appearance of Dream Spider. Which I said back then, how many Spider characters do we really need and that are going to be worth anything? But this one was going for $20 to $25 right out of the gate. People are all about Dream Spider, and now it's still doing pretty well, 10 to 25, but definitely, and I'll be back, definitely down a little bit. 9.8, 60 to 90. We'll see if this Spider character becomes anything, but I have my doubts. Not many of them actually do. Next, we have Contest of Champions, number 1. First appearance of White Fox. The Linnell Francis Yu 1 in 25. Still rumors here of White Fox being in something I think was causing this book to hit the list. I didn't actually write down what the justification was here, but I think that's what it was about, is there White Fox joining the MCU rumors, which we've heard several different times over the years. Raw copies $100, 9.8, $8.50. Now this variant is going for $50 to $70, so this has definitely turned into a trap. So far, there's been no legs to any of the White Fox rumors. All right, so that was our CBSI list. Next, we have all the Comic Tom books. This was another week where they were later, and I did the Cash or Trash before the Tom books came out. I did predictions on some of the Tom books. Some of them matched, some of them didn't. But we actually had 9 books on the Tom list, and I think I got 7 of them right. But anyway, none of that matters. Let's talk about these books. First, we have Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction, number 1. So apparently this is a comic based on a novel, and the novel has been picked up to be adapted by Amazon for a series, so that's the roundabout reason this was hitting the list. It's kind of a cool cover. Back then, raw copies were going for $30 to $65, 9.8, $400 to $600. Now it's a $5 to $50 book for a raw copy. We'll call it and I'll be back, but you could argue trap here because it has dropped significantly. There are enough sales in that 30 to 50 range that were on the low end the previous one that we'll keep it and I'll be back, but there's a lot of sales for well less than that too. No recent high-grade slab sales to compare to. Next, we're back to Something is Killing the Children. This time same Netflix news, but this time we're talking about number 1, Something's Killing the Children, number 1, the regular A cover. Back then, raw copies had jumped back up to $250 to $400. 9.8s were back up to $650, $900. At one point, these books were over $1,000. They had dropped back considerably, and now they're back up. Now raw copies are $275 to $450, so the recent raw sales are actually a little higher, so that would put it on the worth it side. But the 9.8s have taken another step back. They're like $575, $650. So they're down a little bit. Raw sides are up a little bit. Overall just gonna call this kind of steady. I'll be back. You could find some deals, particularly on that 9.8 side compared to what you were paying back then. But yeah, it's been pretty steady on this Something is Killing the Children book for sure. Next, we have Something is Killing the Children, number 6. The first appearance of Aaron and Cecilia. Back then, raw copies were going for $40 to $80, 9.8, $130. Now raw copies are $35 to $60, 9.8, $80 to $130. Still kind of, again, in the same range. You could definitely argue borderline trap on the raw side here on this one, but with the 9.8 sales, we're going to still call it steady. I'll be back here. Definitely this one's taking a bigger step back than that last one, but it's still in that same kind of range. So we'll leave it as a steady. I'll be back. All right, next. Super Mario Brothers, number 1 from 1990. The movie had not yet released at this point, but was about to. The movie did big things, so it'd be interesting. It was super popular, so how did the comic hold up as a result? For those who don't know, this is the first Super Mario series. Back then, raw copies were going for $150. 9.8 hit $19.99. Now raw copies are $50 to $150. 9.6 $4 to $450. No recent 9.8 sales to compare to, but 9.6s are at a quarter of the value of that 9.8. So yeah, I'm guessing pretty comfortably can say follow the pattern of the raws, which is down and I'll be back. Again, borderline trap, but high grade ones were still pushing up there. So we left it as an I'll be back on this one. Yeah, movie was super popular. Didn't stop the book from taking a step back even this quickly after the movie came out. Next, we have Blue Book, number 1, the Comics Pro variant. So this was kind of a popular little indie book for a minute back in the spring. This one, and I think there's another version that hits the list as well. At some point, this Comics Pro variant was going for $45 to $75 back then. Now it's a $45 to $100 book. I was a little surprised. This one is steady and worth it for sure. Same range, and actually the higher ends went up a little bit, so that's pretty much the definition of a worth it. So people still like this cover. Don't know much about the series, I don't even think there was very many issues of the series that have actually come out, but people are still buying this book and paying good money for it. All right, next we're going to jump back to Battle Chasers, number 1. So this is the regular A cover here. First appearance of Red Monica, as we talked about before. And yeah, this one was going, just the regular A cover was going for 20 to 30. 9.8 hit 250 back then. Now it's a $15 to $20 book, which is kind of back to what it was before all of this. 9.8, 175, which is maybe still a little up from what it was before all of the news about the series coming back and the series actually coming back. But this one definitely turned into a trap, though. It's dropped enough that you can definitely call this a trap. It's definitely down. And yeah, still a series that I have nostalgia for and have enjoyed these new issues. But yeah, definitely a book that would have been better to be patient on. No surprise there. Next, we have Spider-Man: The Lost Years, number 1, the first appearance of Janine Godby. And this was the new Hallows Eve comic was coming out, is her new persona. So her first appearance was hitting the list. Back then, raw copies were going for 10 to 30, 9.8, 150. Now it's a $5 to $15 book, 9.8, 60 to 100. So that's definitely a trap. Borderline dumpster fire here on this one, as much as it's backed up. So yeah, this one is definitely taking a huge step back. I think people enjoyed the series a little bit. I heard some good things about the Hallows Eve series, but I don't think that many people actually read it, and I don't know that there's any real momentum for this character going forward. We'll see. All right, only 2 books left here on the Tom's list. One is an MCU rumor. One is Sony, has to do with Across the Spider-Verse that was getting ready to come out. First up, we have The Sentry, number 1 from 2000, the first appearance of Sentry. Back then, raw copies of this were going for 50 to 150, 9.8 going for 525. Based on rumors, we talked about last week, those Stephen Yeun rumors that he was going to be somebody in the MCU. Well, now, I forget who. It was like Marvel Boy and Amadeus Cho last week jumped because of those rumors. Now it's The Sentry, that he might play the Sentry. Anyway, now it's a $40 to $100 book, 9.8, 250 to 400. So this one definitely turned into a trap. Sentry's a great character. The book is super tough to get in a 9.8 in the high grade because of all that black cover. It's a great book, but no reason to chase it based on really weak casting rumors, which is what people were doing back then. And then finally, our last book is Spider-Man India, number 1. And this hit the list prior to Across the Spider-Verse, not because of a trailer, but because of a toy reveal. This is the first appearance of Paviter Prabhakar. I don't know how you pronounce the name. It's the Indian version of Peter Parker. Yeah, because he was going to be in the movie, so that's what caused us to hit the list. Back then, raw copies were going for 40 to 70, 9.8 hitting 3 to 350, which I think we're still down from when previous rumors had this on the list. But yeah, it's down even more now. It's a $15 to $70 book raw. So through that same range, but 9.8s are 2 to 225. So that's a giant trap on the 9.8 side. So yeah, and he was in the movie, was playing I wouldn't say just, it's a pretty minor role, but he was definitely in the movie and played a role. And yeah, we'll see. Sounds like we're not getting beyond the Spider-Verse or whatever the last one is for a while. So it'll be a while before we see any of these guys again. All right, that's it. Those are the 19 books. I want to thank you guys for watching. Once again, we had a lot of down. Well, we had a lot of steady this week, but nothing that went up. So definitely patience would have been worth it. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Later.